Good evening. My name is Kim Matias, and I'm a doctoral candidate at Aspen University. This evening, we're going to be taking a look at involving teachers in professional development and teacher inquiry-based professional development. Today's teachers require opportunities to actively engage in professional growth and development programs that use a sustained, collaborative, relevant approach. Gone are the days of sit-and-get professional development where information was simply delivered with no real follow-up or classroom-embedded context. Research shows that teachers who participate in high-quality professional development with those characteristics mentioned earlier, sustained, collaborative, and relevant, are more likely to engage with what is presented and implement the strategies, achieving far greater success in student growth and achievement, competency, and self-efficacy. Teacher inquiry professional development refers to a form of professional development in education that centers around teachers engaging in systematic inquiry and research to enhance their teaching practices. It emphasizes teachers taking an active, reflective, collaborative role in investigating their own classroom practices, student learning, and educational challenges. Teacher inquiry is often seen as a powerful means of fostering continuous improvement and professional growth among educators. 4 of these such professional development opportunities that we're going to consider this evening are lesson study, teacher action research, cognitively guided instruction, and instructional coaching. We're going to look briefly at each of the 4 and the benefits they have and the challenges that there are to implementing them effectively and practically. So what is lesson study? Lesson study is a professional development approach that's used in education to improve teaching and learning. It actually originated in Japan and has gained popularity across the world. The fundamental idea behind lesson study is its collaborative, ongoing teacher professional development centered around the creation, observation, and analysis of actual classroom lessons. It is a cyclical process that includes setting goals, planning a lesson, teaching or observing the lesson, and then reconvening to reflect upon the lesson. After the lesson is reflected upon, teachers go back and revise the lessons, and they reteach the lesson, and then they repeat the cycle. It is based on pedagogical principles of continual and gradual learning. There's a focus on teaching, classroom choices that are specific to the classroom and the students that the teacher is working with, teacher autonomy, and the fact that it is cyclical and sustained. So how does it happen? The teachers work as a group to set a goal and decide what the objective for the lesson is and what mastery tasks will be completed in order to show that a student has mastered the objective. Then, together, based on best practices, previous experience, pedagogical principles, and research, the team of teachers creates a lesson plan. One teacher is chosen to teach the lesson, while the other teachers record student engagement and reactions to the lesson throughout. The team reconvenes to discuss student experience, supports and barriers, and any missteps in the teaching process. They make changes and corrections, and then the original teacher goes back to reteach the lesson. So what are the benefits of lesson study? Well, it's truly a reflective practice, and it is collaborative reflective practice. It's not one person looking at it by themselves. It is a group of teachers who are working on it together. Lesson study also emphasizes the use of evidence-based practices in the classroom experience. It increases student learning because the ultimate goal of lesson study is to enhance student learning outcomes. By refining and improving lessons based on evidence that's collected from the data in the classroom, teachers can create more effective and engaging learning experiences for their student. There's also this community of shared instructional knowledge because lesson study facilitates sharing instructional knowledge among the team who is creating, teaching, and observing. It does certainly shift the school culture or that group's culture, because when you implement lesson study, it contributes to a culture shift in education, moving teachers to a more collaborative, inquiry-based approach for professional development. And the last part is that there's a lot of teacher empowerment involved in lesson study, because it empowers a teacher to take active role in their own professional growth, and it allows the improvement to be teacher-led and allows educators to have an impact on their own development and the development of others that they're working collaboratively with. But there are definitely challenges to doing lesson study. Because you have to create separate lessons outside of the lessons that you're already creating, and you're creating lessons that you may not be using particularly in your classroom, there is an increased work expectation for the people who are participating in a lesson study. There are certainly time constraints associated with, because it's usually done on top of what teachers are already doing, all the other responsibilities that they have. There's a cost to human capital, because you need to be able to bring your group together in order for all of them to observe a lesson that's being taught and then reconvene for reflection and correction, and then do it again. So the cycle can cost quite a bit of human capital, because you need to have other folks that are able to go into the classrooms and cover for the teachers who are doing the observations. And so oftentimes there's a lot of pushback from leadership, because it can make it very difficult for leaders to find the space and time and human resources that are necessary to run a program like lesson study. Okay. So the second thing we're going to look at is teacher action research. And so teacher action research is actually a form of inquiry-based research conducted by educators to investigate and address specific challenges or questions in their own teaching and learning experience within their classrooms generally, but they can also use teacher action research as a school-based professional development as well. So unlike traditional research that's conducted by external researchers, teacher action research is actually carried out by teachers by themselves within their own educational context. It is also a very reflective and systematic process, and we're hoping to improve teaching practices and student outcomes when you're using it. It's been around for about 60 years, so it's a tried and true investigation, but it does differ from external research, because it's used in very, very small context. It's also a cyclical process. There's a planning stage, an acting stage, a developing stage, and a reflecting stage, and each of them have their own set of tasks that need to be done. We're going to look at that a little bit. So here's Mertler's chart of activities that happen through the stages. So when a teacher decides to embark on a teacher action research professional development, like I said, there's 4 different stages. You have planning, acting, developing, and reflecting. During planning, they're identifying their problem and they're formulating their research questions, and they're gathering information and reviewing literature that's already out there and creating a research plan. So how are they going to collect the data that they're looking for? The second part is acting, and that's when they're conducting their research and collecting data and analyzing the data. So they may be running a lesson, or they may be doing observations, and they're collecting the data and then going back to analyze. And then the difference between regular research and action research is then they're developing an action plan to respond to the data that they've collected. And once they've developed the action plan to respond to that data, they are implementing the action plan and going back to reflect on what that experience looked like, share the results, and reflect on the actual process as well. The idea of teacher action research is that it's either going to solve a problem or it's going to create new questions that will continue on beyond that first action research. The benefits are, it's definitely a professional development. It's very different than any other professional development that teachers may embark upon. It is all about data-driven decision making, and that's really important to understand. It does improve student outcomes because teachers are really paying attention to what is going on in their classroom. There is some collaboration and sharing. Sometimes teachers embark on this together. Sometimes they do it alone, but the whole idea is that research is shared among others. So that's important. And there is a lot of teacher satisfaction associated with doing action research because they're able to really drive what they're learning and wanting to find the answers to. It is an innovative way to do professional development because teachers who are involved in action research are more likely to experiment. They're more likely to try innovative techniques and teaching methods and strategies. And experimentation can lead to development of really creative and effective approaches to instruction and solving problems. There are some drawbacks to it as well. Again, time constraints is definitely a concern because it's usually done, a lot of the work is done outside of teaching time. There oftentimes can be lack of resources. If you want to be able to do something innovative, there might not be those resources available. You definitely need to have leadership on board to support teachers who are trying to do new things. Oftentimes there's an inadequate understanding of the process, and then there's incomplete or inconsistent training and support by leaders, by other teachers, by your district. So when we're thinking about doing teacher action research programs, we want to make sure that we're really addressing and supporting the teachers who are participating in teacher action research. The next form of teacher inquiry-based professional development is cognitively guided instruction, so CGI. So what is CGI? CGI is a little bit different. It's been widely adopted in elementary school and math programs across the country over many years. It's been called different things, but it definitely influences the way teachers approach teaching math concepts in elementary school because they focus on understanding students' cognitive processes, which diverges from how math has been taught historically, where we're thinking about skills and just building skills. Now we're looking at how students learn so that we can create a more meaningful and effective learning experience for math. How does it happen? So teachers are actually taught. So there has to be a shift in the mindset of teachers. Teachers have to be able to ask the right questions and listen to students to gather the data and inform instruction. And every student is a little bit different. So they're developing different, they're bringing different experiences and knowledge of mathematics into your classroom. And so that's what it's really focusing on. It's focusing on knowing how students learn. So you really want to be able to elicit student understanding and prior knowledge, and then increase student knowledge and skills simultaneously. So it's a cognitive constructivist approach to learning mathematics. It focuses on 14 different problem types, but it's really about how to generate those ideas and express those ideas using words and symbols, and how to justify yourself, how to problem solve, and how to get people to understand that your ideas are true and valid. So again, it's a very collaborative experience. Usually it's done as a team of math teachers, but it really does have a lot of benefits. So some of the benefits are understanding student thinking, which is really, it's very, like I said, there's definitely a shift in how teachers approach teaching math and math concepts, because you're looking at how students understand what they think about math concepts, and it allows teachers to tailor their instruction a little bit more. It does offer a lot of opportunity for individualized instruction because it recognizes the diversity in student learning and student thinking and styles, and teachers then can use the approach to provide individualized instruction and adjust teaching methods for specific students. It uses cognitive processes to develop lessons. Instead of just building skills, you're using cognitive processes and metacognition in order to do some of that work. It shifts teachers' beliefs in learning. It also shifts teachers from being what we call the sage on the stage to the guide on the side. So shifting it from teacher-centered teaching to student-centered learning. Again, there are definitely barriers, and you can see there's a pattern in the barriers, right? Time constraints, the lack of resources, certainly the lack of professional development. This one requires a lot of professional development, support from leadership, and it's an alternative approach to teaching traditional models, and that creates a lot of pushback from teachers who are used to doing things. So really having to shift teachers' mindsets to a growth mindset is also sometimes a barrier for professional development. Okay. And then the last one that we're going to look at is instructional coaching. It's probably the most familiar for most people. Instructional coaching is a form of professional development in education that focuses on supporting teachers in improving their instructional practices and enhancing student learning outcomes. They work collaboratively with teachers. They provide guidance, feedback, and resources. And the goal is to help educators refine and enhance their teaching skills within the classroom environment. Again, a very cyclical process. Teachers and coaches together work to choose a goal. They collect baseline data, and then the coach is providing feedback and practice opportunities. They're evaluating what is happening in that classroom, and then teachers have an opportunity to reflect and iterate on the process. And it's a continually cyclical process. It doesn't just, it's not a one-stop shop. It goes on for several weeks or several months or even a school year or two. Okay. It's also based on pedagogical principles, collaborative, reflective, a lot of modeling, data-informed decision-making, and again, cyclical and sustained. So how does coaching happen? Well, there are two people involved. There's a coach and there's a teacher, and they have very different roles, but they work simultaneously and they work collaboratively to improve the practices of the teacher. So I'm not going to go through all of them, but the coach collects and analyzes data and provides services and models instruction. They help teachers go through curriculum and pick it apart. They become a mentor and a guide and supports teachers' classrooms, where the role of the teacher is to really understand their own needs and then be willing to receive feedback and adjust to the feedback that's being received and being open to critique. There's lots of benefits to instructional coaching. It's very individualized and very collaborative, and it's really right on time instructional feedback. There is certainly improved teacher practice when the teacher is willing to accept the feedback and the critique and make the adjustments that are needed. And there's also increased student learning because the coach is paying attention to how the students are engaging with the teacher and the material that's being taught. We have found in research that teachers who have had good coaching experience also find that their confidence is increased, and it actually leads to improved job satisfaction and improved retention of teachers. There are, again, some barriers to instructional coaching, just like everything else. There's a lot of costs associated with coaching because you have to hire coaches to go in and do the work. So you have two people versus one person in a classroom, and the coach could be assigned to several different people, but they're not classroom teachers and they're not focused on student learning in the same way. So there are some implementation costs associated with doing instructional coaches. There's a lot of reluctance from teachers. Teachers are used to being isolated. They're used to having a lot of autonomy, and it can be very uncomfortable for a teacher to have another person come in and critique their work continually. The most important thing is that there's a trusting, non-evaluative relationship between the coach and the teacher. Sometimes alignment issues do come up. Either the coach's goals are not aligned to the teacher's goals, or the teacher's goals are not aligned to the school's goals, or the school is mandating what the alignment should be. So there can be some issues around that. And again, time constraints. It is timely. The teacher is expected to, work with the coach and then, meet with the coach and do the feedback and do the reflection, make the changes. So that takes a lot of time and effort from teachers to participate in. So one of the questions that came up is, what would I choose if I was to implement a new professional development program for my school? And I was actually very interested in doing the cognitively guided instruction as our choice. I like professional development that I can offer to my teachers without having to do it myself, because I'm certainly not an expert in any particular area beyond my area of expertise, but I think it's important that we offer those. So I looked at cognitively guided instruction as our choice, and I think primarily it's because it gives us the opportunity to shift beliefs in educational philosophy. Again, going from a teacher-centered classroom to a student-centered learning classroom. The outcomes that we're seeing for students who are using cognitively guided instruction or teachers that are using it in their classrooms, there's significant increases in achievement data. There is an article, a dissertation that was written by Cynthia Hendricks in 2019, and they found that when teachers were using CGI in their classrooms and they were doing it with fidelity, that there was a 20-point increase in improvement in student achievement data over a year. I like it because professional development is actually sustained, it's job embedded, it's relevant, it's rigorous, and it's supported through coaching and collaboration. It improves problem solving and communication skills, not only of students, but it also helps teachers with problem solving and communication, and it changes teachers' feelings about math, which then also improves students' feelings about math. And then the other thing, because I'm a special education teacher, it allows for really truly differentiated instruction. And I think that's so important because teachers can cater to students' unique needs. So that is the one that I would choose for my school. And when asked how I would actually implement this, I would do, a multi-pronged approach to doing cognitively guided instruction, professional development. We would have a summer institute of at least 5 days, so 5 full days with all of our math teachers in our elementary school. And then we would break out into PLCs based on our grade groups. So all the first grade teachers can work together, second grade teachers would work together. They would meet bi-weekly, but there would also be quarterly CGI seminars. I would probably use one of the companies that is out there that actually does this. I did list the company within, I listed some of the research that this company did, and I would probably hire somebody like that. And then we would reconvene that summer institute again at the end of the year to do reflection and feedback and next steps. Alongside of the PLC meetings, we would do coaching and lesson planning as groups. So I think this is a pretty comprehensive approach to implementing CGI, professional development, and instruction in the classroom, because not only are teachers getting the information, then they're able to use the information, reflect as a group, reflect individually, receive coaching around it, and then come back and reconvene as an entire team again at the end of the year. So that is what that's what I would recommend for my school. Okay, and here are some of the references that I used to gather this information for you this evening. And I was just saying CGI Teacher Math Learning Center is probably the company that I would use in order to put forth the CGI program. So I hope that you find this information useful. If you have any questions, feel free to read any of these references. They're all very good, and they all are they're very specific to those 4 areas. Thank you very much and have a great evening.